Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is Peter Lavelle, co-founder of The Gaggle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, today is the day after the day before, which means that the summit is over. All the post-match analyses have been delivered. Everyone is now almost exhausted from saying almost nothing about a summit that was amounted to nothing. But we here at The Gaggle still can squeeze out a little bit more juice from.
I think real juice, because most of the commentary has been awful. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, the thrust of it is that the United States and Russia have agreed to set up a committee to launch a global, or at least a strategic dialogue, to develop some negotiations towards a new strategic arms control agreement. There is also an agreement to discuss cyber warfare. The Americans have apparently put forward a list of no-go areas. These are certain industries that are to be off limits, which of course is quite meaningless because because basically it's not as if the Russian government has engaged in these hacks. At least the Russian government has insisted that it has not engaged in any hacks at all, and that these are private individuals. So it's no good giving a list. Here's a list to Putin and Lavrov. Now do something about it, because basically it's very hard to control the hackers. And indeed, it's very hard to establish the issue that the Americans are absolutely adamant on, which is that the hackers are located in Russia. And in fact, the Russian side has announced that actually the hacks that Russia is susceptible to emanate from the United States, and that Russia has actually complained many more times about hacks than has the United States. So again, we can just go pointing fingers at one another, but the fact is that nobody knows who's really responsible for this, the business of hacking. It is, as Trump once famously put it, it could be some 400-pound guy lying in bed who's responsible for the hacking. So there is that. Now, the few other sides is Biden's extraordinary, rambling, incoherent performances. He gave a rambling, completely incomprehensible news conference. And then he gave another kind of a short news conference just before he got on the plane, said almost nothing other than he insulted a CNN reporter, which was very, very nice. Though again, this wasn't the crisis that it would have been had Trump insulted a CNN reporter. Putin, on the other hand, gave a very cogent, very coherent news conference, during which he answered questions by and large from American reporters. Unlike Biden, who during his conference, there were no Russian reporters present, and he had a list already presented for him as to whom he would call.
He loves the challenge. I've seen him do it in person many times. He likes the challenge.
That's right. But Putin answered all questions. He answered them very succinctly. The contrast was marked, but when you read the media were, perfectly happy with Biden's performance, and the only thing that concerned them is, will Russia behave? We've given Putin one more chance. Will he behave himself? Will he behave himself, Peter?
What I think is very interesting is that I think that Putin and Lavrov were just besides themselves laughing and the circus that Blinken and his boss Biden brought into town. It was probably for the Russian president and the Russian foreign minister, it was worth the trip just for the comic relief. Okay, so here we have Joe rambling on. He snaps like he's, like grandpa about, something is wrong, and
Right.
just suddenly gets really upset.
He does.
Then he kind of grovels,
Yeah.
and then he incomprehensibly telling what the media does. Joe, you've been in this game for 50 years, okay? 50 years.
50 years.
You know, we've talked a lot about gain of function, but I think the Biden people have come to the, I've tried to maybe come to the conclusion that gain of stupidity must come to an end.
Right.
That's my gut feeling,
Right.
because I really think that they've seen to what disastrous levels Russiagate and this whole ethos can go, and it's sucking them up into it. Okay, it's sucking them all into it, because you have these, low octane journalists that are just activists, and it paid dividends playing that game for 4 years. Maybe we can keep playing that gig. Don't learn anything, ask inane questions.
Right.
Okay, and it's reached its saturation level because it's giving negative returns. This is, calm down, boys. We're talking about the summit. So they're getting negative returns from it all, and I think maybe this is an opportunity, maybe for Jake Sullivan and Tony Blinken. They've come to this conclusion: is this isn't working for us, and maybe we need to put a cap on it and say, well, we told them, we gave it to them cold, and I think that's probably it. Okay.
Well, I think, yeah, but the thing is that that's the media. Are absolutely unremitting in their hostility towards Putin, toward Russia. They believe that Russia is guilty of everything that Russia has been accused of. When Putin patiently explains himself, they just sneer and say, God, this KGB man, he always weasels his way out of every situation. He plays this whataboutism game. It is, how does he have even the nerve? How does he have the insolence even to respond to these charges of which he's obviously guilty? That's their view. But there's no question that there are a few things that Biden blurted out, which gives you a sense of the thinking that's going on in the minds of Blinken and Sullivan, because he's obviously picked this up from Blinken and Sullivan, because Biden said something like, well, Russia is in a very tight spot. It's being squeezed by China, and it really badly needs respect in the world, because its economy is in the toilet. And you can say this is what he has been fed, being squeezed by China. When did that happen?
He's got this drivel from the New York Times. Okay, somebody slipped him a couple of op-eds. Okay, and it's just utterly ridiculous. It has no bearing on reality whatsoever. No, it's in a way it's kind of projection, because they're beginning to realize they're in a real pickle, and it's all of their own making, and they can't get out of it.
That's right. That's right.
And then more sanctions. Okay, all right.
Right.
I mean, what else? Are we going to go to war or not? I mean, I guess that's the only thing we really want to know.
Right.
And because it's going to be more of this, then there will be consequences for you. Right. Okay.
Right.
Because if you keep upping the ante, at one point you have to call.
Right. Right. Well, that's it. I mean, I think it really is. I mean, we've talked about this many times before, but they have imbibed this idea of this reverse of the Nixon-Kissinger paradigm. Okay, so then USSR was very powerful. China was very weak. The United States aligned with China against the powerful USSR. Now it's the other way around. Russia is the weak one. China is extremely strong. So we will weasel away Russia from China, and then it'll be this our ally. And that informs their thinking. They think, oh, Putin, all he wants is respect. He wants to be a big noise in the field. And once the Americans bestow some kind of a status on him and said, okay, you can wear long trousers now because you're a big boy. And then, oh, thank you, I'm with you.
But that's an illusion. It's an illusion. That's not going to happen. Russia sees its best interest served by aligning with having an ally that's going to respect their sovereignty, respect their internal political order, not meddle in it. And I mean, the U.S. is hocked up to its neck in
Right.
debt. Okay, and most of the economic growth in this century is going to come from Asia. So what are they missing, George? Okay.
Nothing at all. And then you've got the other aspect of it is that Russia has built up a superiority in strategic nuclear weaponry, and this is something new. This is a reality that the military planners, not the sort of idiots like Lloyd Austin. I mean, he's too stupid. I mean, he's too busy hunting down white supremacists in the military. But there are people who are a little smarter than him, realize that Russia now has an edge when it comes to nuclear weaponry. And so it is very much in America's interest to put a halt to it and to negotiate some kind of a strategic arms limitations agreement. So you got that. And then you got this alliance of Russia and China. And it's fantasy, absolute delusion to think that Russia and China really hate each other and just, they can't, it's like two dogs, they're ready to go at one another's throats. Fantasy. I mean, they're just reading into this one moment in history, a very brief moment when the Soviet Union and China were very hostile. It was a brief moment even in Soviet history, because in Soviet history, much of the time, the Soviet Union and China were actually on good terms. But this one moment, and this America's just been stuck, in this time warp of the forever. The USSR and China are daggers drawn.
Yeah, but see, let's look at that triangle there. China saw an advantage to accept an overture from Nixon. It was to their geopolitical advantage.
Right.
All right. I mean, what geopolitical advantage does Russia gain by embracing these people in Washington? I can't think of anything. No, because it's like energy relations. Okay. It was the Russians agreed to a number of protocols, but they never ratified it. But this mentality is that European energy companies can invest downstream into Russia. I mean, like eat the fields. Okay, I mean, literally taking it out of the ground. And so you have the complete supply chain. So you get all of the profits within that chain. But the Europeans say, but Russian companies can't buy our downstream.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Because you can't, okay? and what they want to do is they want to accrue all of the profits through the chain. And I'm giving, this is the best example, but it happens over and over again. It happened with Russia and Finland. Finland had downstream operations for lumber. And then it was, I think it was around 2005, 6, something like that. The Russians said, hey, look, you're getting all the value out of this chain here. And I went, no, if you want to keep your downstream, we got to be in yours, okay? And they did it. They did it. And then lumber is a big deal for Finland, okay? And so what the Russians are saying is that you inherently look at us as being on the short end of the stick. That's the way you see the world. We don't, and we don't have to accept it anymore. The Chinese don't treat us that way.
Right. No, that's the thing, and that's what the Americans just simply don't listen. And the Russians spell this out. Especially during that interview that Putin gave to that NBC reporter, because the reporter kept asking him, "Oh, well, do you really trust China? Why do you trust China? What would you do if the China threatens Taiwan?" And Putin kept explaining to him, there's no reason for us not to trust China. We don't have any disputes with China. We only have good relations. We only have cooperative relations. We do have a problem with the Western powers. There we seem to have problems all the time. We're getting headaches with what goes on towards the West. We don't have any problems with anything going on in the East.
China isn't in a military alliance trying to encircle Russia. Right. I might have missed that, George. Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. Really?
Exactly.
Oh, and Russia and China have joint exercises. Okay, on sea and in land. Okay. Right. There's trust. Oh my goodness! There's the word. There's the golden word. Trust.
Right. Yeah.
There's no trust I wouldn't trust the West as far as I could throw them. No. I'm serious.
But no,
really?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, no, that's right. There was a hilarious moment during that during that NBC interview when he made this very point. Well, why would I trust? Look at the commitments that were made to Gorbachev in from 1989 to 1991 about that NATO would not move 1 mile eastward. And then the reporter said, but was it written down on paper? And then Putin said, very good, well done. You made your little debater's point. Now what? Why exactly has NATO moved its borders to the east? Just think about that instead of trying to make this little debater's point. Ha ha ha! But there was nothing written down on
paper. Yeah, because Gorbachev said, "What's an agreement among friends?" That was his fault. Okay,
well, that was his fault. Yeah, but the point is that it doesn't matter whether there's an agreement written down or not. The fact is, NATO did move its borders. And clearly, NATO is not stupid enough not to realize that Russia would feel this as a dire threat when they just simply move it hundreds of miles right up to the borders of Russia. They don't worry about a thing. Don't worry about anything.
But it was only a few years ago. NATO expansion is to project stability. Remember that? All that.
Oh yeah.
And now Russia is the threat. They just say it. Okay.
That's right. Exactly. They do say it. Exactly.
They just say it.
They
just simply say it right now.
Yes. Russia is a threat to NATO. Russia is a threat to NATO's eastern boundaries. That's it. They say, that's right. That's the threat. So you move your.
So when NATO claims publicly that Russia is a threat, wouldn't you, if you were the leader of Russia, start reinforcing your
right. Well, that's it. I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, they keep complaining. What are they complaining about? They're complaining about Russia carrying out military exercises within its own borders. So, and that apparently is a threat to NATO. And I suppose, yes, by a bizarre logic, I mean, if NATO has moved its borders right up against Russia, then yes, Russia carrying out military maneuvers within its own country is right on NATO's borders. But that's NATO's problem. And so,
I mean, Russia.
The idea that this is some kind of a legitimate complaint.
Russia didn't move those NATO armies. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And that is the amazing thing. I mean, whenever the media ask all these "when did you stop beating your wife" questions. It kind of never even occurs to them that what the West has actually done to Russia. So they just say, "Oh well, you're a threat to Ukraine." Yeah, whereas because of what Ukraine, you had a military coup, not a military, a coup in Kiev. The first act of which this new government was to put bans on the use of the Russian language. This was an extremely hostile government. We knew the hostile government, and it was facilitated by NATO after giving assurances that that they would actually support the agreement between Yanukovych and the opposition, supported that until at least the elections that were supposed to take place in December 2014.
Yes, and once the coup regime came to power, the language issue was number one. Number two, attack the Donbass, Donetsk and Lugansk. Up to 14,000 people are dead as a result of that. Killing, Assad is killing his own people. Well, I mean, the Kiev government was killing their own people, and no one in the West lifted a finger.
That's a very good point. Exactly. No one has ever made that point. Hey, you're killing your own people. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Look, I'm glad we brought this up. I mean, as strange as it may sound to people, but a lot of it, maybe not now because of all of the death and destruction, is it, when all this started, people saying, hey, I'm a Ukrainian too. I'm a Ukrainian citizen. I speak Russian. I have no animus towards Russia or Russians, but I'm a Ukrainian and I have my rights too, okay? And then systematically, blockade of medicine, blockade of food, blockade of energy. They're blockading their own people. Where is that mentioned in Western media? Does Tony Blinken know that? My goodness, okay? Russia didn't create the mess in Ukraine. NATO countries did.
Yep.
And it continues this day when you have Zelensky whining on Twitter like a little, a little boy howling in the forest.
Right.
We demand to be in now.
Right. Right.
Again, this gain of stupidity has to come to an end. And I really, really hope that that's what this summit accomplished, because it didn't accomplish anything else. It didn't accomplish anything you couldn't have done on a Zoom call.
Oh yeah, no, there's no question. But that's an interesting thing about Ukraine, because it's clear that Zelensky was encouraged during the early months of the Biden administration to try to resolve the situation in the Donbass by force, and then the Americans suddenly panicked. Russia responded with such fury that the Biden administration realized we're facing an absolute bloody disaster here. Because if they mount an offensive, Russia will intervene. This will be a catastrophic military defeat for Ukraine, and it'll be an absolute humiliation for the United States.
And Lavrov
bring to an end at least the rule of Biden himself. I mean, the Biden administration will continue, but Biden himself will be out because of such a blunder of this magnitude.
And we had Lavrov very clearly, not someone that is prone to hyperbole. An attack on Lugansk and Donetsk will see the end of Ukraine.
Yep, exactly.
Those are that's easy to understand. Even Joe could read it from a teleprompter. Okay,
that's it. Those are easy to understand. And Blinken or Sullivan, whoever, got the message, and hence they suddenly decided to change their tune and said, "Oh, let's have this this summit." And essentially, nothing very much has come out of it. They say, "Well, we're going to have these committees and discuss this in the future." Now, I don't know about you, Peter. I'm pretty sure that within the next couple of weeks, we're going to have more stories about some atrocities perpetrated by Russia, a new hack, a new interference in an election, some new media disinformation campaign, and sanctions. We need sanctions. We have to have sanctions now, and we'll be back to normal. There isn't any consensus, any real basis within the United States that favors rapprochement with Russia. There just isn't. I mean, in neither party is there any substantial support for.
And the media.
And the media, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this hope one day we can't frame this yet because we don't have enough time from it. But in one respect, it could be a respite from all of the nonsense that's being generated, or it could be a point where, all right, it tipped here. There'll be little skirmishes, but it's not going to get any worse. I would like option B, honestly, but I also think that it showed Blinken, Biden, and I think the world at large watching this summit is that the Russians are not easily frightened. They're not they're not open to unilateral concessions. Zero, none
whatsoever. They're just not in the mood for it. And all the talk of Navalny and everything, Russia just simply, they're absolutely not interested. And even the reporters said, well, President Putin didn't even refer to Navalny by name. Well, why should he? And it says, it's nothing to do with you, nothing even to do with me. These are all, decisions made by district courts. I mean, I don't make these decisions. It was a court that sentenced him to prison. I mean, it's like asking a president to intervene in some state court matter. I mean, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I mean, if he did, then he would be a dictator.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. Well, that's the sort of logic which they never fully understand. It's like,
well, he's a weak dictator. He's not in control. I mean, you see, I always bring up this metaphor because it always works. It can't be Keystone Cops and James Bond simultaneously. Right. And they want it to be floating in the air next to each other in equal measure. Right. But that's not a world of reality.
But it's
that's in your mind.
That's right. It's very funny because that just reminds you the way you pointed that out, that at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, when they had Slobodan Milosevic on trial. So on the one hand, they were accusing him of being a dictator because he was putting nationalists in prison, like nationalist agitators like Sheshet in prison. Next minute, they were accusing him of supporting nationalism because he wasn't imprisoning Sheshet. So whatever you do, he's always in the wrong. So it's the same way. Oh, he's a dictator because he's interfering in the proper judicial process. But he's a dictator in that he doesn't interfere in the judicial process.
The only upside from all of this is that they have come to understand that the path of lunacy they're on gains them nothing, okay? And maybe just, they can say Russia's changing its behavior. They can do all their whole propaganda, Radio Free Europe, everything. Okay, that's fine. I don't really care. But if it changes their behavior, right, they can keep the rhetoric. Right. We're keeping our eye on them. We're keeping
an eye. Exactly. Yeah.
We keep the midnight oil, well stocked.
It's very interesting though that the Republicans have now reverted to their absolute loony worst. I mean, they're now gone back to Mitt Romney in 2012 and even before. I mean, they're just sort of mad dogs. Like they're just rabid. They're foaming at the mouth. People like Tom Cotton and Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and then of course Sean Hannity was leading. I mean, Hannity was just completely beside himself. I mean, Putin's a crime boss. He's a mobster. He's a killer. I mean, it's complete insanity. I don't. They don't seem to have understood that the key to Trump's victory in 2016 is that he had abandoned that whole neo-Reaganite, neocon, let's go fight the Russians rhetoric. He said, Russia's not our enemy. That Cold War's long been gone. That was it. It was a new message, and it delivered an election victory for the Republicans. I mean, Republicans, they sort of briefly understood this, and now
and the path they're on now, and if they continue it, then they will not ever win national elections again, ever.
No, I agree. Because the American people, well, pretty much like people anyway, they have a certain common sense. They say, what is Russia doing to us? How are they a strategic threat to us? So why exactly do we need to go to war against them? And aren't they a big nuclear power? Isn't that a kind of a dangerous thing to go fight it with them? It's a common sense position, and the Republicans are violating common sense, and that's why election defeat is a certainty.
Yeah, I mean, in Taiwan, that right. That's new Kurds, right. Taiwan.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, they might ask a question. So, who lives in Taiwan? Chinese people.
Right.
Oh, but you like Chinese people in China? Yeah, exactly the same people. Oh, well, maybe they should work that out. I mean,
that's right. Yeah,
we're on the other side of the pond. Yeah. I mean, it's a Chinese thing.
It's like Hong Kong as well. Who lives in Hong Kong? I mean, not Englishmen. I mean, these are Chinese people who live in Hong Kong.
And so, the Iowa farmer, our favorite Iowa farmer, is like, yes. All right, yeah, okay.
That's good. And all these things, like Crimea, because ask anyone in Iowa or wherever, say it'll be news to them that Crimea is not Russia. I think, well, wait, I thought Crimea was Russia. Didn't I learn in school that there was a Crimean War between Russia and England and France? I mean, but it's not Russia. I mean, it's nuts. It's an absolutely nuts policy. And you have to say, Biden, has been quite cunning in laying this trap for the Republicans. He let them walk right into it.
I mean, it's really interesting. It's really fascinating how they've passed the baton.
Yes.
Okay. Now you can run with it for 4 years. Okay.
That's it.
However, it does have a coercive. I don't think it's a particularly good stratagem I mean, for internal politics, it works to some extent here. But Biden doesn't have a Russia policy. It's
No,
almost impossible for them to have a
no,
Russia
no, no, no,
policy
no.
because the whole discourse, the narratives build up. It's one big minefield for anyone
Right,
that walks into it.
right,
Okay.
right.
I mean, and just as a sidebar, I remember telling Jimmy Dore, the Americans will rue the day for getting too involved in Ukraine, because anyone that goes into Ukraine is going to get screwed, okay?
Right.
Big time, okay? And
Well,
it happened, okay?
that's exactly it. I mean, the Republicans under Trump had a wonderful issue. They defeated Hillary Clinton on that. They say Obama, Biden, and Clinton made a complete mess of Ukraine. They got themselves involved in Ukraine with some very dubious characters, very sleazy characters. They started a very dangerous war, and there's no need for it. You know, Russia is basically an ally. There are no conflicts. No conflict between Russia and the West. There's nothing. There's no territorial conflict. There's no economic conflict. There's no ideological conflict. So what the hell is all this about? Trump grasped this. He wrong-footed the Democrats, and the Democrats were apoplectic and spluttering for 4 years about, oh, Putin, he's Putin's agent, Putin's agent. But now Republicans have just walked right into it. And they've lost this great issue that they had, because there's still the issue of Obama, Biden, and Hunter, and what the hell they were doing in Ukraine all those years. I mean, that still should be an issue that Republicans should run on.
The interesting thing is that Russia, in this narrative that has been generated as a result of Russiagate, Russia is not a place. It's not a. There's no people, because it is in this space that I'm talking about. It's only an idea, okay, and it is being used as a cudgel to force purity tests. Russia has nothing to do with it, okay?
You're right, exactly.
And it's all about your purity. And it's a very interesting variant of kind of wokeism, because you can't be a little bit, or no, you got to be one or the other.
Right.
And if you're one, you know, you're with us, or you're not, you are a toady. Right. And you have no place in respectable society. That's See, right. It's a purity test. Right. And that's fine for internal politics. We see it all the time, okay? I mean, Dr. Seuss, you know, all these little things, okay? But this is a real thing. And policymakers have to make real decisions, okay? I mean, you can do your weekend wokeism all you want, and your purity and your virtue signaling, but when it comes to crunch, that's a real place and real people, and they have their own genuine, legitimate interests.
Right. No, that's right. And of course, the United States has its own legitimate interests, and which is that it has to get its economy into top gear. It has to become a manufacturing powerhouse as it once was. It has to abandon all its Cold War alliances and all that nonsense. But it hasn't done any of that. But what's really interesting is that, remember, Helsinki, the hysteria of the media, again, in this case, you had the Democrat media, and then, of course, you had the Republican media join forces in absolutely, you know, loony attacks on that completely, you know, appropriate, and basically.
And Trump was right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was no big deal at Helsinki, but it was just, everyone went absolutely insane.
But he was proven right.
Of course, he was proven right. So now Biden, as you know, he has a meeting with Putin, and of course, yes, the right-wing media, Fox, you know, they're going crazy. The New York Times, they're sort of, well, good old Joe, he's an optimist. He's basically, you know, there's something about his personality. He can't help but trust people. You know, that's Joe. He's a lovable guy, but Putin's a killer. You know, he's going to kill him. But, you know, you got to, you know, congratulate Joe on being such a good guy for, you know, giving.
Well, you know, Joe reaches out the hand of friendship to murderers all the time.
Yeah, that's right. But, you know, it's funny that there was this whole one New York Times story today said, you know, Biden is an eternal optimist. The Washington Post is saying Biden is a pessimist. That's what makes him such a successful foreign policy leader, because he doesn't really expect anything great to come out of it, but he feels still he needs to give it one more shot. He's a pessimist. He's an optimist. That's the level of the kind of analysis, foreign policy analysis you're getting in the U.S. these days.
No, the analysis, because of, again, the time difference and everything, what I saw my morning, it was just rubbish. And Fox was by far the worst.
Yes.
CNN and MSNBC, again, their policy of complete omission. I mean, what they said they could, it was probably written before the summit happened in the first place. There was no analysis of wordsmithing and things like this. It was very blasé platitudes and all that. And then, the conservative media just went absolutely ballistic. Nord Stream 2, I think we need to fax it to Sean to tell him what really is going on, because I'm really tired of it. Oh, and since we're talking about it, Sean Hannity, you should be fired by Fox. You interviewed Trump again, and you interviewed yourself again.
Yes.
Stop doing it.
Yes.
Stop doing it.
That's right. He interviewed himself. And you can see, instead of that, even Trump was distancing himself from Hannity, because Hannity was bringing up all this nonsense about Biden's decrepitude. And Trump wasn't going there.
He didn't touch it. Nope. No. And I think he's right. Good. Okay.
Yeah. But the thing is,
what we need to do, see, this is what this is this theater they put on us. Joe's obviously struggling. Okay, fine. We all know that. What were the policy outcomes? That's what we should be talking about.
Right.
Okay, it's easy to make fun of someone, okay? And that's a form of punching down. And I like to avoid that. Every once in a while it's kind of funny, and I like levity, okay? But we're interested in policy. Where do we go from here?
Well, there's that. I think
analysis doesn't like to go there. Because you might have to think.
No, but I think, to be honest, there's also another aspect of it. Look, we aren't doctors, and we're certainly not experts on dementia. And we don't know to what extent Joe is putting on an act. If you put on an act that, I don't know where the hell I am, you kind of eliminate any possible attack,
disarming,
possible criticism.
Disarming.
Yeah, I mean, well, poor guy, we can't attack the poor guy. So we just don't know to what extent this is all genuine. Notice that when he needs to be, he can be quite alert. And then there's other time, where am I? Where's everybody? Who am I? Am I in Ohio and everything? So we simply don't know. Remember, Ronald Reagan, during his second term, was exactly the same. So where is everybody? Where's Nancy? What do they want me to say? I mean, and
so this is Joe's version of.
Nobody could question him because, well, poor old man. You can't bully him.
So this is Joe's version of the madman theory.
It's
an interesting iteration of it here. That's a wild card that may play out one way or another.
We don't have anything like his medical record, so we just don't know.
Well, I mean, also in kind of an interesting way, Joe's antics certainly took all the criticism out of Kamala Harris for a couple news cycles. I don't know. Well, that's their comm shop, okay? Right. But the much ado about nothing, folks. What I hope is that there's tacitly, privately, nod, wink. We're drawing a line here. We can't go any further because the way the logic of what we've seen because of Russiagate, the killer comment from Joe. I mean. It's war. I mean, that's the only direction it can go in now because you've basically taken all the pieces off the table. There's not much more left.
I don't think so, and I think that I think it is the case that the most significant event was the fact that someone in the Biden administration, whether it's Blinken, Sullivan, or whoever, realized, hey, in Ukraine we're going down a very dangerous path, and this was a face saver. Hey, we'll have a summit, and then it doesn't look like, but we basically just completely walked away from a conflict that we had started. So, all the folk, it's a summit and so on. But basically, it's a face-saving exercise.
Yeah, I mean, what did you think of Biden's comment about Ukraine joining NATO? They have to clean up their corruption, which was really, really. I mean, Is he being facetious? Is he, is he kind of poking someone? I mean, of all people to talk about corruption in
Yeah,
Ukraine.
yes, exactly. Yeah. That's right. That's I mean, it's Zelensky is getting more and more pathetic. He just said, yeah, we've been promised NATO membership. That's it. NATO has invited us to join. Well, they got to get their corruption.
You know what he's up doing? He's probably, because he knows a lot of people in entertainment. He's like, those badges they wear at NATO that at the headquarters, can you make one for me? Okay. We can make our own. Okay. We'll make our own badges. We can go walk around like everyone else, No
Right,
one
no,
will
I think so, and I can quite envisage that. There's something having, they set up their own kind of NATO headquarters. Put NATO, put that whole, the NATO logo, and to pretend that we're all having NATO exercises.
Saakashvili did that, remember? In August 2008, he would wait for CNN to beckon him. Okay, he literally would wait and chew on his tie, waiting for CNN to give him the word. And he had the EU flag and he had the Georgian flag. Okay, they're not in the EU. Okay, and it's the same exact thing. That's Zelensky is going to start walking around with a NATO pin.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yes, yeah. I must call up Stoltenberg. I think I have a 6 o'clock phone call scheduled.
You're absolutely right, and it has not been given any airing. The most important outcome is how, if and when, and hopefully it will be very, very soon, is this recalibration. We've already seen an inkling of this recalibrating towards Ukraine. Maybe the summit puts a cap on it. I mean, they're going to still, fund them. They're going to still train them. Military hardware. Okay, that's fine. But that's their face-saving way to keep that, because they don't want to look like complete fools as they are. Okay, but I don't see the temperature going up.
No, I don't think so. I think they learned their lesson. I think they panicked. When they said, hey, we're going to send in some warships into the Black Sea at the time when Zelensky is going to be mounting his offensive, and they're suddenly, what the hell have we could walk our way into? And they backed away, and then came the telephone call. Please, can we have a summit? And that's it. I mean, that was their face saver, and they were able to walk away from a calamity that they had themselves created.
And now there's no real reason for Biden to meet with Zelensky. He can just send him a couple clippings from the New York Times and say, read this, and maybe we'll do a Zoom call.
Right.
At the end of the
year. In July, I mean, no one does anything in July in Washington. So it's, then, Biden's going to be in Delaware. So
Zelensky will come all the way to Washington to do a Zoom call while Biden's in Delaware.
I am sure that's what will happen. He'll arrive and sorry, he's not here right now. Kamala is she's out in California. I wonder, maybe I want to say, they get some low lick.
Hey, let's see if Vindman's free. Get Vindman on the phone. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, and incidentally, Vindman has got a New York Times op-ed today. Putin is still winning. That's his theme. He's winning.
As that little Ukrainian was pouncing on his fists on the table. Okay. I want to be Minister of Defense. Okay, I think we covered it.
I think we have. All right, then. We'll, of course, as we always do, maintain our focus on NATO, Biden, and so on. Where can we find this, Peter?
We are on Locals. So please type in thegaggle.locals.com. George and I have set up a new product and you have a conversation with us. And there is a tip jar that has to feed Buddy. Buddy's sleeping.
Buddy and feed us.
And in fact, we need to eat once in a while too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to push Buddy away from the bowl and help myself. And we're also on Rumble. Look us up there. And remember, if you like The Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.